Hello, everybody, and we are live. Welcome and thank you for being here today. Thank you for carving out an hour of your time to be with us during AI Visuals and the Creative Entrepreneur. Now, when I say AI Visuals, we're talking about AI images, AI videos, AI avatars. And when you say these, small business owners are either curious or nervous or even, where the heck do I start with all this? And so that is why we're here today, just to have a nice, practical, not technology heavy conversation with three people who use AI in very different ways in their business lives, day in and day out. And so, just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. Today's panel will be recorded and available to you. I'll email you the replay. But the benefit of being here live is that you are able to ask questions of our panel. And so that is very exciting. And speaking of questions, if you have questions, please put them in the chat and we will have a Q&A session later on so that you can talk about anything that we haven't covered today. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Regina Garay. The name of my business is Right Brain Loves Left. And I help small business owners in the interior design and construction fields with their marketing, their goals, and their AI systems. It's all about making them manageable. And I was a decorative artist, and I segued into digital marketing and then AI systems. And this is a perfect blend of creativity and that left brain thinking, that analytical thinking that the AI systems bring. And that is where we find ourselves today. And so I'd love to bring on our panel. I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves, saying, if you can each go through who you are, what you do, and how AI comes into your life, your business life daily. I would love that. Lindsay, why don't we start with you?
Awesome. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Lindsay Sullivan. I'm the founder and CEO of the Small Business Photographer and Visible by Design. So I help heart-centered entrepreneurs really increase their visibility in a way that attracts their dream clients and leads to sales. So I do that through brand photography here in Calgary. So I help business owners get images of themselves that show their personality, tell their stories, and really show the human behind the brand. And then I also teach them how to really, use AI tools, strategies, and systems to save time with their social media, become more consistent with it, and again, attract more of those dream clients. And I use AI in a variety of different ways, but one of the things I love using it for and teaching people about is AI image creation and video creations. So I love helping them create stock images and refresh their existing brand photos and things like that. And some of my brand photography clients actually hire me to do that for them as well. So a lot of times people kind of ask me, why are you getting into AI image generation as a photographer? Aren't you afraid that's going to be, scare people off and destroy your business? But it actually is added to it because people will often hire me for the AI or they end up taking my courses. So yeah, that's how I use AI.
And I love it. And you are so generous with your knowledge. And I love how you lead people in a very easy way to learn all this. And Lindsay and I met in a mastermind group years ago, and I've stayed in touch with her ever since and have also taken her courses. So thank you for being here today. Tobey, why don't you bring us up next?
Hi guys, my name is Tobey Renee Sanders and I am the owner of the Faux Pro Studio right here in Atlanta. So we do everything, all things creative. Anything I can get my hands on, paint, decorate, I'm there. But within the last few years, I've been using AI heavy, and I actually teach that to the members of my coaching program. So now we're using AI to automate emails and check our emails for us. We're using AI to create all types of assets, whether it's videos, pictures of our work. But, I always train them to start with their custom images that they've made in their studios with their own hands. And then I teach them to elevate that with AI. So that's what we're doing right now.
Beautiful. And you do such great work with the AI systems and the AI images and the AI videos and avatars. Tobey and I have known each other for at least 2 decades and been friends and worked together. Yeah. So thank you for being here today, Toby. I'm so happy to have your genius here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Keren, you are bringing us in last but never least.
Hi, I'm Keren de Zwart. I am an attorney and the owner of a law firm called Not Your Father's Lawyer. I'm based in Southern California. I've been practicing for a little over 17 years as a corporate and securities lawyer turned small business focused lawyer. Everything I do is flat fee project based work. I also have legal contract templates, membership, and my focus has always been on access to information and education for small business owners, because anybody who's had the unpleasant opportunity to work with kind of the traditional legal field knows that it's very opaque and, not very welcoming, not very service oriented. And I really, even as a young attorney, I really wanted to change that. And that's how I kind of accidentally fell into this, truthfully. I didn't envision running my own firm. I started this as a blog way back in like 2009, and it turned into a firm over the years. And I've been running this firm for 12 years now. And I say that I'm kind of a new age lawyer, in that I work with and I treat my business as, kind of cutting edge. I work with a lot of online business owners, kind of forward thinking small businesses. And a lot of attorneys are really afraid of AI. I am not at all. I think it's useful, not just for me and my business. I use it on the back end of my business a lot. I've been incorporating it into kind of my processes and systems in a really useful way. And actually my team we're like on the cusp of launching a completely new like onboarding intake system that uses AI, and it's scary, but it's fun and it's exciting and it's helpful and it's efficient. And so I promise not to rain on everybody's parade here, because I do believe in the usefulness of AI, but I'm also here to share some of the legal considerations, because it's really the Wild West here in the AI world and law. And so hopefully I can create some sense of comfort and certainty as you think about how you're using AI in your business.
And I love it. And I thank you so much for the services that you provide, because when I first started I started in a law firm, and it was very intimidating, to speak to a lawyer in that way. And of course, lawyers are all like, dun, 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 so I really appreciate the fact that you are open to AI, you're bringing it into your world, and that you also help small business owners with, the legal aspect of their business in such an easy and friendly way. So, all right, without further ado, let's get into AI visuals. I've got a question for the panel as a whole, and then we're going to speak to each one of you individually. So the first question is, when you hear the words AI images, AI videos, AI avatars being clones, I guess, of yourself speaking on video, what is the first real world use that comes to your mind for your own line of business? Anybody jumping in? Lindsay,
I'll go.
Toby, let's just jump in.
I think for me, it was like, wow, now I'm able to scale, right? I can use my avatar to scale. I can use videos, pictures. Now I can really become this super ultra luxury brand and not have to like worry if I'm going to actually have like a zillion clients lined up. Now I can take my work and actually create the projects that I'm dying to do. So for me, it was like, okay, now I can finally scale without having a team of, 20, 30 different artists out working. So that was my biggest thing, when I'm like obsessed with, being able to create all of these videos and images.
And you're talking about scaling because of the time drain that you don't have anymore.
Right. So now when I go into my studio and I create the images, or I create the sample boards or new Venetian plaster, I don't have to wait around to see it on the wall, right? I don't have to wait around to see it like come to life. I can just create these images and then I use those images or the videos for marketing. And
Love
it's
it.
been really helping to get, the clients that I want to work with because they see it and obviously I can do it. It's just, I've taken my work and I've created this. So it's been helpful for me. It hasn't really been a hindrance.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. And Lindsay, for you, what's the real world use? Because as a small business photographer, you'd think you'd be the first one to say no. This is not no. But you've embraced AI in your business.
Yeah, I would say like for me, the first thing that came to mind was branding. I'm obsessed with branding. So I was just like amazed that we can now create images in our brand colors with our ideal client avatar in them, telling brand stories. And so it just opens up this world of possibility that we never had access to. And so I just love the branding aspects of it. So for example, you can create images that are really unique that tell a story. So in one of my master classes, I talk about falling off my horse Bernie. It's a metaphor for how people fall off social media and struggle with consistency, and they're afraid to get back on because they might fall off again. And so I needed an image to go with that. And so I was easily able to create one in less than 2 minutes. It was a cute cartoon that looked like me as a kid with my horse, with my brand colors. And it was just something that I can use to go with that particular story, where I never could have done that. I couldn't have found something like that on the stock photography site. I couldn't have created that myself because I would have needed a kid to fall off a horse. So, it just never would have worked. So the ability to create that with AI, I think it's just so incredible that we can do that. So yeah, I think it's really exciting to be able to create those kinds of things.
Well, just to see some, thank you, Lindsay. Can you still all hear me?
We can hear you. We just can't see
Can you not hear me? Okay, see me. Okay, so I am going to see what I can do about the camera, but if you all can still hear me, we'll keep on going. So tell me, for a small business owner who's curious but nervous about using AI visuals, what is the lowest risk way to start?
I would say just use ChatGPT. It's come a long way with image creation. I never would have recommended it a year ago, but it's actually pretty good. So you could just put, ask it to create an image for you. Maybe something, you normally get a stock image from a stock photography site. You could just ask it to create that image, but in your brand colors or maybe with your ideal client avatar. So that's like the easiest way to do it, because ChatGPT is pretty intuitive and you can use it the same way you normally use it when you're getting it to write copy for you and things like that. So I'd say, yeah, just give it a try. Ask it to create an image for you and be like, I want this person with this color, with this setting, and let it try.
I've found that sometimes when I do AI images, I test different ones. So I'll use Nano Banana, which is via Google, and ChatGPT. And I find that for me, ChatGPT produces better images. I've also used Canva to produce images, which I think if people use Canva, it's kind of like a easy way to just get started with it. Would you agree?
Yeah, it's definitely an easy way to get started. I find Canva doesn't give you quite the same quality of images. I'd say I've used Midjourney AI for quite a bit. That's one of the ones I'm an expert in and teach about. And so it can create some really great images. And the nice thing about something like Midjourney is you can actually customize it. So you can have a certain profile and it'll create all the images in that color and tone and that kind of thing, which gives you that cohesive look with your brand. But ChatGPT has caught up quite a bit too. So I find like it's doing some really good images as well, sometimes even better than Midjourney. So those would be the two that I would recommend.
Yeah,
we're going to get started. You can use Canva, but quality can be hit and miss.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think Canva is just like a easy entry into it,
yeah.
But Midjourney is so beautiful as well. All right. Toby, I'm still having issues bringing up my camera, so sorry about that, you guys. But I think sound is better than visual for this, so we'll continue to roll with it. Toby, we're going to talk to you for just a little bit. Tell me how AI has improved your business processes. And I know that Lindsay and I have talked about tools. What is your favorite tool of the moment and why?
Of the moment, it is probably Base 44. And
Oh,
that has allowed me to build this agent that can go into my Google Gmail. It can check my Outlook because unfortunately, as a creative, that's one thing that I lack on is checking my emails, even responding back to people. Like I really have to force myself at least once a day to sit down and at least thumb through them to make sure I'm not missing a client inquiry or anything like that.
mhm.
So with Base 44, I've been able to build this agent and it can respond for me. If it doesn't know how to respond, it'll contact me. So I set up everything in my WhatsApp and
Interesting.
it will organize, it will delete the junk. I mean, it has been game changing. So now I don't miss anything important.
Mhm.
I don't miss any of my customers, or if anyone wants to order a piece of art, I don't miss any of those. Whereas before, if you don't get back to people right away, I mean, they're going to move on to the next person, right?
This is true.
So yeah. So Base 44 is and I'm not even doing anything super creative in there. It's just making me more efficient as a business owner.
I love it. And it's about, because we do think about how even AI in general, but of course, AI images and AI avatars, when we're saving that time, when we're getting back to people, when we're talking to them on social media or on wherever we choose to use those images, it's something where we are a consistent presence and it's a professional presence. And it's a presence that, is timely in their answers and in their consistency in how they reach out to you. So I think that that's such a great way that AI can help in terms of your business, even the creation of those videos, saving time and sending them out, especially if you're also sharing what their project could look like or what their branding could look like, and things like that in a timely time. Okay. Lindsay, we're going to go ahead and focus on you. As a small business photographer, you are a part of how people stand out, how they market themselves, how they bring in more business into their world. With using AI and the images and the visuals, is it becoming easier or harder to stand out online?
I'd say it depends. I think if you're hiding behind, the generic AI kind of images and not showing your face, it can be harder to stand out online. And if you're creating, more generic kind of images that look, kind of something basic like a coffee cup, for example, or those kinds of things aren't going to necessarily capture attention. But if you're creating images that kind of surprise people a little bit, that they're not expecting, like maybe a metaphor of something, like, for example, I created one of a pink elephant drinking tea to go with the pink elephant in the room metaphor. And that's going to, grab people's attention because all of a sudden there's this image of a pink elephant, right? And you can even animate that image using AI to actually have it drinking the cup of tea. So that's something that people aren't going to expect. And so it's a pattern interrupt. So you can use AI that way to stand out. And then the other way is you actually really want to be showing your face. And so if you're showing your face these days, because there's so much AI stuff out there, there's the fake AI images, the headshot generators that change your face. And I'm not a fan of the clones and things like that. I feel like those really actually decrease trust with your audience. So it's really important to be showing your authentic face and personality. Now you can use AI to amplify that. There are some AIs where you can actually swap out your background so you can get more mileage out of your brand photos, for example. But you want to start with your original image so you have that authentic expression. So people are like, oh yeah, that's that person. It's Karen or it's Tobey. It's like, I recognize that smile. It looks like her. It's not, is that her? I'm not really sure. You get that with the AI headshot generators, right? You're like, that might be her. It could be a sibling. I'm not really sure. So I think one way to stand out is to really show your authentic self and show you. And you can use AI to help with that. You can actually animate in like brand photos of you, so you're walking or like doing things like that. So there are ways to use images of you to get that visibility out there and establish trust with your audience, because nobody's you. You're going to stand out.
Exactly.
Using generic stuff, you're going to stand out. So yeah, that would be what I would suggest with AI. Is how you use it. You can either blend in with everybody else or you can stand out.
I love it. I love it. By the way, I did check out with my camera and it looks like I'm going to need to restart the computer in order to make it work. So we're not going to do that because we're going to lose the webinar. So I am just going to continue. If the three of you are okay with me just coming. Okay. All right. And Lindsay, I did want to follow up with that, because speaking of authenticity, how do you guide your students or your clients to, because, when we look at AI images, we can think, oh, this is not authentic, or why are they using that? How do you guide them so that they remain memorable and still have that authenticity?
Yeah, so when it comes to authenticity, especially if they're using images of themselves, it's to make sure they're not changing the face or the smile. So there's different AIs, most AIs out there will change that, but there are some out there that won't. So to use ones that don't change the face, so you get that authentic expression. So that's one thing I always recommend for people is, yeah, you can change the outfit, you can even change the pose and the backgrounds and all of that, but keep your face the same because we want that. We want that authentic smile. And then for stock images, it's authenticity is kind of like you have a whole bunch of creative possibility with that. I would say just be more on brand with it, right? So create images that fit your brand aesthetics, that fit your brand colors, that have your ideal client avatar in them so that it's, really authentically your brand.
I love that. And, I've used, original photographs to create new things for myself, with your guidance, of course, Lindsay. And it's been such a game changer because sometimes you think, I wish I was looking this way, or I wish I was, doing this, and it just changes it. And it looks completely authentic. It's just that one little tweak, that would take me forever in Photoshop to fix or do. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Lindsay. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh yeah, no worries. I was just going to say too, it can save you time because a lot of times you have to go get a whole bunch more photos done too. So you're like, oh, I want some seasonal ones, or I want a different background because I've used that same photo like 10 times. But you can get a fresher look with it if you can change out your background and your outfits. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Keren, we're going to come to you and we're going to give you the big question. When I generate an image or a video, do I own it? And and tell me a little bit about what business owners get right and wrong here on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I hate to be the lawyer, but a little bit is the answer. Lawyers like to say it depends. If I had to say a short answer, the short answer is no. By default, anything that is solely AI generated is not something you own, in that it's not copyrightable. It might not be trademarkable. And there's a lot of nuance in there, and we can get into that. But there's layers to this. So what Lindsay was talking about, for example, taking an image of you that you do own, assuming you own it and not the photographer, but if you own the image and you're tweaking it, then that's something more likely that you are going to own, because it's just taking what you already own and adjusting it. The more human input into an AI generated anything, image, content, copy, etc., is the more likely it is something that is legally protectable from an intellectual property standpoint. And then how you use it matters, obviously. So if you're taking an image of yourself and you're tweaking it to change a background or an outfit or the angle of your face or whatever, and you're going to just use it for social media, it's not really that big a deal in terms of like, do I own this or not? You're not infringing on anybody else's rights potentially, but you're not looking to copyright it either. If you are creating things for clients that they, according to a contract, should own or have a right to use or reuse or however that might look, or a license, then it gets a little more complex, because maybe you don't own it in that. This happens a lot, not so much in the in the creative world. This happens a lot where I talk to graphic designers, if they're using AI to help generate a logo or brand design of some sort, that can realistically not be owned by them. For that, they if they do it from scratch and they generate it solely on their own, it's theirs, and then they have a right to fully assign the intellectual property rights to the client, and then the client can do whatever they want with it. They can manipulate it, they can edit it, they can change it, they can use it. So a little bit depends on kind of what you're doing with the AI generated content. If you're using it organically, on social media or on your website, lower risk. If you're using it in paid advertising, slightly higher risk. If you're trying to give it to clients, slightly higher risk. So a little bit is understanding what you're doing, how you're using it. Are there any rights that you're intending to assign or license to some other person, like a client? And that matters a lot. And there's a lot of nuance in that. But I would start with the assumption when you're generating something in AI that you do not own it.
That's so key. That's so key. And I love what you said about even the more in-depth prompts or the more in-depth information that you use to do that image, the better it is for your work. When you are generating the AI image or AI video, is it necessary to disclose this is an AI image, this is an AI video? Is that legal thinking? Is that ethical thinking? Is it both?
Also a great question. The answer is it depends on how you're using it, which is some platforms actually do require now. So you'll see this on, like, obviously people are very familiar with like Meta's tools. A lot of like if you post something on Instagram that Meta even thinks is AI generated or uses AI, it will it'll like flag it with a little thing at the top of your, in the feed that says, AI information or something. And if you click on that, it'll say like, this may be generated with AI. So what I like to tell my clients, and this is really true just across the board, not even just AI related or creative related, just in life, in business, transparency is key. So some of it is legal in that, and the FTC, which is the Federal Trade Commission in the United States, which just because we have a Canadian too, so that they oversee, it's the federal government organization that oversees regulations and laws related to marketing and advertising. And there are a lot of shifting rules, and like everything with law and bureaucracy, it's very slow and AI is very fast. So it's constantly playing catch up. But the FTC has indicated that they intend to require disclosure with AI generated content. There are some very specific things. So many platforms now are requiring by platform rule, and then lots of states are requiring by law a disclosure when it's humans generated by AI. So that would be even what we talked about that seems kind of innocuous, like I own this picture or video of me and I'm tweaking it or I'm using it in this new way. That a lot of, there's state law that may govern that, and or platform rules that govern that required disclosure. So that's something to think about. And then ethically is a little bit obviously more ambiguous, depending on your industry. A lot of industry associations are taking official positions on AI generated content and whether ethically in that industry they believe disclosure is required. From my end, disclosure is legally safer and a better business practice. So to me, there's no harm. And I think this goes back to even what Lindsay had said earlier, which is, and authenticity matters and trust matters with your audience, and trust and authenticity reduces legal risk too. So if you are using it, disclosing it is usually a good way to ensure you're complying with any laws or rules that exist anyway, and creating that trust and transparency with your audience or your clients or your customers, so that nobody feels like they're being, bamboozled into something that isn't real.
And you bring up such an interesting point, because when you say creating AI visuals with humans, because I recently read an article, I want to say her name is Tilly Norwood, where they created an AI actress to star in movies and films. It's quite, and there was a celebrity interview with her, and how unusual it was for the profiler who does big name celebrity profiles for her to come in and sit down with the coder and a laptop to speak to the AI actress. And so thinking about how legally where that's going to go, when we create, of course, when we create our own image, we have more of a control over that. But when you start talking about creating other humans, or, let's say you're showing off a room and you create, a client avatar to walk through it, where that comes in. It's so interesting where it's going.
Well, and I think that this is a really good point, because you actually touched on a few nuances that are really important to think about, both from a legal and an ethical standpoint. So if you are presenting, if you decorate a room, I say that with air quotes, using AI generated content, that it's not a real client, not a real room that you decorated, and you are presenting it to an audience like it's real, that is potentially legally tenuous and ethically a problem, because you are, and this is where the FTC comes in, which, the FTC is monitoring all kinds of claims, and my clients see this a lot, where I see this people get this wrong all the time, is like, clients that are like 3x your income in 6 weeks or whatever. Like, those are claims that the FTC regulates, and the AI generated content that is not real, but is being presented to an audience as if it were a real client, a real room you did, that is legally problematic. And so you have to think about these are good things that you can do to showcase skills or visuals or your branding or your ideas, but it has to be, potentially with disclaimers or disclosures. This is not real. This is what this could be, not this is real, because it looks real. And it is. I mean, just like Lindsay mentioned, a year ago, ChatGPT's image generation was crap. And now you have an actress that can literally like be a human and sit down for interviews and perform in movies, which is wild. And when you think about how far that has come in such a short period of time, imagine 6 months from now or a year from now. And so we have to be thoughtful about what we are putting out there and what the legal ramifications would be. So obviously the reason I grabbed on to that, and that's not exactly what you said, but I grabbed onto that because that is what people are doing, which is I am creating an entirely fake client or an entirely fake deliverable that did not ever exist. And if I am treating it as if it were real, that is legally a very big problem, because you are presenting to your audience something that isn't real, as if it were real.
I do like what you said, though, going back to what you said, I do like saying this is an example of what it could be. That's a really great way to, not only have that transparency, but also that authenticity. And, also, I think a third thing in saying that this is an AI image or an AI tool is the fact that people often perk up and go, oh, how are you doing that? Or, oh, they're on the cutting edge. To me, that's what I think. I'm like, they're doing some great things, and all that. Okay. I have a question for all of you. And I have an answer to this myself, but I'm so curious what you all think. What is the biggest misconception small business owners have about what these tools can and cannot do? I can jump in if you'd like. So for me, one of the biggest misconceptions is that you come in, you type in, I'd like a room doing this and doing that, and here you go. And that it's going to happen in the first result, and it's all comes together. So I think the misconception is that it's easy to produce the final result in the first try. That's, when, for me, I think it's, and Lindsay and Tobey and Keren, you all know, I think it's about that prompt. and what
Yeah.
you give it. Can you elaborate more on that?
It's definitely the prompt, especially as a creative. But I don't even think people realize that you can ask it for a prompt.
Yes.
And that's what I teach my members. I'm like, you can talk to AI plain English. Like it'll get it. Use your whatever you want to say, talk to it and ask for it plain as day what you want it to do. So that's how I've trained my members how to get their prompts. Like I need a prompt that does this, tell it what you need and it'll spit it back out. Um, you need to be a little bit more specific. Maybe you're creating in C dance. Maybe you're doing it in Gemini. Maybe so actually use the tool, in your prompt, like create this for this tool. And 100% of the time, it'll spit something back out. Now, what it spits out, it may not work, but it's a great start, right? Because a lot of people think you have to be tech savvy to talk to AI and use it, and you don't. You can talk to it plain as day, plain English. And so I try to get people to understand that in my community as well.
It's actually
Yeah.
funny, Toby. I did the exact same thing with Claude. I was working on like back end systems, and I knew that you can put in like prompt files into a project so that it's reading those every time you're using it for a specific purpose. But I was like, I don't know how do I create those? And it was like, no problem. I'll interview you to get all the information I need. And then here's your file, just upload it. And then I was like, where do I upload? It like gave me the whole thing. And I did think that is a funny tool, like that people don't realize. But I do want to take this from a legal perspective, which is AI is not always accurate. Number one, AI is built, the whole concept of an LLM, a large language model, is that it is built on other information, and it will hallucinate because it's built to give you what you want, basically. So
Yeah.
don't take things. I see this in the law all the time. People are like, I can write a contract with AI now. You can't yet. I'm not saying you won't be able to write a great one. And to speak to prompts, the better you prompt it, the better the output of a contract would be. But most people don't know what's missing. They can't see what's missing like a lawyer can. But knowing that it's built on it's potentially built on other people's intellectual property is that you have to be really thoughtful about what output you're doing. When it's back end things, you're usually okay. But if you're like trying to create content or build something that you want to sell, using it, you have to be really thoughtful about the potential risk of how it generated what it generated. So that's just something to think about. AI is built on other people's work. So to think through how you're using that, especially when you're generating creative content or deliverables to clients, that's a big thing to think about.
And I love what you said about hallucinations. And for those of you out there in the audience, when we talk about hallucinations, it's when AI makes up information. Because the LLMs, the large language models like ChatGPT, they do want to make you happy, and they want to give you an answer. And so, and I run into that, just with statistics. And I remember receiving a statistic and I'm like, this is the perfect statistic. Oh my goodness, this proves everything. And I'm like, wait a minute.
And you can actually set you can teach AI that they have to like link to the resources that they're pulling from. So I always tell people like that should be a no-brainer for everybody. So it's actually really funny. There's been very high profile. I mean, the fact that lawyers are doing this is hilarious to me. But there's been very high profile cases where lawyers are submitting briefs to courts with a bunch of non-existent case law references. And I was like, I mean, we literally have tools like this isn't new. Like this existed 20 years ago when I was in law school. Like it's called shepherdizing a case, and you put the case into the platform like LexisNexis or Westlaw, and it tells you like, is that still good case law? So I mean, it's so easy, and they're not doing it. They're just going, AI drafted my brief and I submitted it, and there were 22 cases that were referenced that are not real cases. And
Oh
so
my goodness.
I only share that, A, because it's funny, but B, because like licensed professionals in an industry mess this up all the time in big ways. And so I think it's just a reminder that AI can give you information that looks really real. Like Regina said, like, oh, this is a great statistic, but you can be like, where's the link that you got this statistic from? And then
Who's
if
it
you,
from?
right, and then you can do your own research. So AI is a great tool to support you, but there's still, critical thinking that we have to do as business owners in what we're, what we're putting out there.
Yeah, and even in those prompts, you bring up a great point, because even in prompts that are generating AI images or AI videos or AI avatars, you have to be very careful that you're not using copyrighted or trademarked. Like, you can't say, at least for me, this is what I think. I wouldn't ever say, "Hey, put me next to Mickey Mouse at Walt Disney World," or or something along those lines. Before I forget, just a little side thing on prompts. I wanted to share something that Lindsay taught me, and that's when you're prompting and you want a certain look, you can actually direct it to say, uh, generate this like a Nikon, wood, and you can actually put in the type of camera, high-end camera that you want that output. And I was like, are you serious? And I tried it and the results were incredible. So I just wanted to say that before, while we're talking prompts. But when you're talking prompts, that's a good point, not to put in copyrightable information, because I think that's a whole legal thing where people are using other people's trademarked property in their own avatars, or creating videos based on those.
Yeah, or even in the, like, people will sometimes say, like, create X, Y, Z in the style of blank. So an example, like a less risky, but like people might be like, take this funny text thread and make a rap in the style of Eminem, and it outputs something that's really funny and cool and whatever. But when things like that go viral and they are, emulating too closely, and I mean, this is where intellectual property rules are very nuanced, and I don't want to get in the weeds, but is it kind of derivative work? Is it too close? So people do that in the style of, I was thinking about, you were talking about like the camera style is different, obviously, versus if you said like, oh, I really like this creator, create this look in the style of this creator, or in the voice of this creator. And it's often too close legally that can put you in kind of legal hot water, especially when things like that go viral, because obviously the more eyeballs on it, the more likely there's going to be a problem.
So much to think about, and I think it's easy to kind of avoid legal pitfalls if you're really doing it in an authentic and, a way that doesn't infringe it, where it's your own creativity coming out and it's a provable creativity. At least that's how I'm feeling here. Lindsay, I wanted to ask you a question as a small business brand photographer. What can AI at the current moment, never replace about real photography in a small business?
Yeah, it can't replace the real human behind the brand. So again, going back to your expressions in your face, you can put your photos into a headshot generator, like a selfie. You can ask it to create clones and things like that. But the AIs can't replace the real human. And it's often that real human with that expression, that the eyes, the face, the smile, all of that people really connect with. That's what actually creates that trust with your audience. There's even like, when people actually see your eye contact, it actually stimulates like a hormone called oxytocin to be released in the brain that links, increases trust. So, if you're using fake images, you're actually losing that, but real images, you get that connection built with your audience. So I would say that's one thing that AI can't replace, is creating images from scratch that look exactly like you, that have your expressions in your face and all of that. So you still need images to start with that have that authentic smile and those eyes and that expression.
I love that. I love that. And, it's all about, for me, the term that I use is human-centered AI, because there's so much of what AI, even just the output, you need the discernment that a human can give it and do all that. Tobey, for you use AI avatars and they're so fantastic. And for me, it really gives me a great idea of who you are and your energy. How do you use it to support your creative vision without letting it flatten your style into something generic? How do you ensure that it maintains your personality?
So using the actual avatars, I create those with my videos. So I don't create my avatars from a still picture. So I've actually trained so I use HeyGen. So I've actually trained my HeyGen based on videos that show my actual expressions, if I lean forward, if I lean back, how I smile, how I laugh. And those videos to me look way, way more authentic versus you animating a picture, of yourself. So that is one of the ways that I've been using my avatar. I don't really like being on camera and talking on camera and talking to the people. So this is another way. Well, unless you're my membership, my coaching group, I want to preach to you all day. But I've never been the person that's like, hey, I'm just not that girl. And so my avatar has enabled me to be closer to that person. So I am working on it. But yeah, I write my script out, I put it to the avatar, and it's done in like 60 seconds. And so for me, it helps me to stay consistent with my social media, because as a creative entrepreneur, I have to constantly post every day, twice a day. Like, it's a lot. It's exhausting. So
it's a lot of work.
So my avatar has allowed me to be there and be that. And the people who follow me that are really into, my creative journey, I don't think they even tell the difference. I can tell the difference, but if it's a still picture of me, I'm definitely like, okay, I don't like this. So I've also had to learn what makes me feel comfortable with using AI in my business as well. So that's one of the things that I've really gravitated towards is using the video. So I'll just upload a video, even this video, something like this, give it a script and it'll change it around, and so you still get my hands moving, you'll get me laughing. So that just makes me feel a lot better on my journey to being more camera forward. But it has definitely helped me to get out there more. I also use it in my coaching program for all my videos. So if it's a video, if they're already locked in, they're already in the community, they don't care if it's the AI, they don't really care. They just want to make sure that they're getting the lesson and getting the information. So I use it a lot inside the community for my training videos, all over the place, because sometimes I can't just stop and do training videos and all this and all of that. So the avatars has really, really helped in my video. I mean, in my business as well.
Yeah, I remember filming some reels, talking reels, and I am not joking with you guys when maybe it was like 40 something takes, and I was just like, this is, I'm a perfectionist, so, and, now I'm like, forget it. I'm just going to be authentic. And if it's messed up, it's messed up, sort of like today. But, it's just the idea of an avatar that looks like me that can just get it out and save me that time, and not even the time, the stress, of having to film and refilm and refilm. And you're just like, I have so much other stuff to do. And, this reel is going to last 48 hours in my, so, but speaking of, I wanted to bring something back to you, Keren, because Tobey brought up a good point. When she's in her coaching program, everybody knows that she's generating this and they are looking for the information, and it's okay for them to be trained by her avatar, which she actually set up. When you have other people doing these types of coaching programs or anything like this, do you recommend that it's in the agreement to protect everyone, not only the creator, but also the students?
Yeah, so I think that there's a few things. Disclosure is important. When somebody's paying to be somewhere, to learn from, an expert, you don't want you think about it just practically. Would somebody be upset to learn that it's not me? And I think what Tobey's doing is not her, right? She's creating the content. The avatar is built on her. It's not like if somebody met her in real life, they're like, what? You don't look anything like your avatar. You've made up this completely fabricated, expert.
Exactly.
It's her. So there's a unique thing. Would I still say that there should be a disclosure, and that anything, if somebody thinks, for example, that they're paying to speak to Tobey live and it's not Tobey, that's different versus if they're like, these are like, go at your own pace, learn the information. That is different. To have it, I would say it should definitely still be, typically in the terms and conditions that they're agreeing to in when they're checking out at minimum. Excuse me, it should be in there. Depending on the level of kind of how you use it and what you're doing, could you create a more a more conspicuous disclosure that's very clear? Yes. So I think that there's a difference between if somebody was like, join me live for my 5-day training, and it's not you, and you're off in, the Bahamas while your avatar is teaching people. That is a legal problem, because there is a disconnect between what you are telling people you're giving them and what they're getting. But if you say, learn from my course at your own pace and my video trainings, it's not as important, although I do think some disclosure is important. But like I said, if it's in your terms and conditions that says some of these trainings, maybe avatars, completing the trainings, all the content is generated by us, blah, 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 then that's okay.
Yeah, and that's what I love about both Lindsay and Tobey with what they share, is that they're both very authentic and very transparent, and they let everybody know what's happening. And it's so good to hear that from an attorney, that others should do that as well, and implement that in their business. Okay, so it's about 1:52. I haven't seen many questions come through. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat. But as they come in, if we don't have, because we did kind of touch upon a lot of good things in this past hour, I have a question for all of you. In the next 6 months, in the next 1 year, what are you personally experimenting on or using to stay with AI and where it's going?
Mine's maybe like the least sexy, because the law is. But I think there's two important pieces. One is, I kind of touched on it, which is I'm really incorporating it into the back end of my business to streamline, and create efficiency so that my business is more scalable. But number two is, as I said at the beginning, I am not afraid of AI taking my job. And I see every day clients using AI in place of a lawyer. So instead of shaming them or telling them that's a terrible idea, I'm actually building something for my members that they can use. And it's basically trained on my 17 plus years of experience. And I have a very unique way of, my kind of model is plain language contracts, like plain English contracts, simplicity, fairness for both parties, so that people aren't like having to go back and forth with lawyers to redline documents. The idea is, hey, if you're going to use AI, at least have a tool that's going to prompt you to build something, with some guardrails, and to make sure that things aren't missing that are really important. So that's a tool that I'm working on that I hope to launch in the next few months for my members to use it, because I have no problem. I think that this is a potentially great gap filler for people.
Mm-hmm.
A small business doesn't need to pay $10,000, to a lawyer on retainer and be charged $600 an hour every time they have a question. That's really, there is a huge market of small businesses that deserve access. And I think that AI can be a really big gap filler, but it needs to have some guardrails, and it needs to have some, it needs to be kind of prompted in the right direction. So I'm like, great, let's do it. And let's do it together. And I'm happy to kind of share my knowledge in that and let people have access to that in a way that's going to work for their business.
I love it. I love it. And it's true. And yes, I've been there. I've worked in the law firms with the big 600. Yeah, it's there, the big retainers. Tobey and Lindsay, what are you both experimenting with in the next 6 months, the next year?
I'm experimenting with transitioning my coaching program totally into AI for creatives. So right now I teach both. You can come and learn the techniques, you can come to the studio, but I do want to reach the broader, like the expert creatives, the expert are the people who are like, I know everything, right? But AI. So that's where I'm researching now how that would go. What does that look like? That's pretty much where I see everything shifting in my business.
Beautiful. Lindsay?
Yeah, for me, it's always about how can I save time and make things easier for both myself and my clients. So, different ways of making sure we can keep that brand so they don't have to keep educating the AI about it and really helping them with their messaging and creating social media posts and captions faster, hooks faster, but also effectively, so not just content that's generic. Like, we don't want generic content. We want content that fits their brand, their voice, and also is compelling and actually leads to people taking action. So I'm really exploring more ways to make that faster and easier for people while, again, keeping that authentic voice. So, and of course, seeing how things go with video and imagery and things like that. That's always changing. Like 3 months later, you're like, wow, we can do what? So just keeping up, my finger on the pulse with that. But yeah, my focus right now is really productivity and making things easy and helping people be more consistent with their visibility. So
love it. Love it. We did have a question come in from Beverly. It's for Tobey, and it said, Tobey talked about using AI on WhatsApp. Can you share more?
Okay, so the WhatsApp feature, it's actually, I'm using a tool called Base 44, and I've connected it to my WhatsApp, and that's how I check my emails. So basically I have an email assistant, an AI email assistant, and it checks all of my emails. It responds for me. If it doesn't know how to respond, it'll ask me, like, what do you want to do here? It deletes the junk. It groups things together. If it does respond for me, it'll let me actually check it first before, it reaches out. So that's how I'm using Base 44 to be more efficient as a business owner.
Wonderful.
But it comes through, it's looked through WhatsApp. So all the messaging is in WhatsApp, and it doesn't inundate my regular, text messages with my mom, my dad, things like that. So I keep it separate. So that's why I'm using WhatsApp.
I love it. I love when you can use automations like that to just, if you could see my face, I'm like, have a rapturous face, where it's like, oh, I love it. Those little tedious tasks that take so much time.
I'm sure you're going to learn about Base 44 soon. Your grueling long what is it that your AI
13-week
13-week class. Oh my goodness. All right, so we are almost at the top of the hour at 2:00. I would love for each of you to share how what you have going on, what you can offer, what if you coaching programs or any courses, and of course how our audience can get in touch with you. Let's go the other way this time. Keren, let's start with you.
There's a few ways to work with me. I obviously offer one-on-one legal services. They're all flat fee, project-based services. I also have a template shop full of attorney drafted contract templates in various industries. We're always adding to that. And I have a membership, which is kind of ongoing legal education, office hours, strategy calls, contract review, etc., and actually access to the full template vault if for members. So there's lots of different ways to get kind of legal support and legal guidance. And the best place to find everything is on my website at notyourfatherslawyer.com, or I'm on Instagram at notyourfatherslawyer. And I have freebies, like lots of free resources, including ones on AI. So if you want, you can always DM me on Instagram. I'm happy to send those directly to you so that you can feel a little more legally confident when it comes to AI.
Thank you so much, Keren. Thank you. Tobey, what about you?
My membership is called Paint to Profits. So if you visit painttoprofits.com, that there will always be a funnel there, and you can sign up for my free masterclass. I usually do them once a week, but I've been working a lot this summer. So whenever you sign up, you'll start getting automated messages. It's my AI working for me. But yeah, you can find me. Still, you can actually reach out to me. I check DMs. I actually have many chats set up for that as well. But I do check my DMs. You can email me at info@thefauxprostudio.com. And I'm on Instagram, TikTok, all the things as Coach Tobey Renee. So I'm accessible. I'm out there. I have free trainings like on YouTube. So that's where I really cater to my group they're trying to figure out if they want to take my course or not. So visit my YouTube. And again, if you want to get in it, it's painttoprofits.com, and you'll find me on the other end.
Thank you, Tobey. Thank you. And Lindsay, let's close it out with you.
Sure, yeah. So I offer brand photography here in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So you can always come up and get photos here with me. So you can find me at thesmallbusinessphotographer.com or at thesmallbusinessphotographer. But then I also have another brand called Visible by Design. That's where my education courses are. So I have a workshop coming up this weekend called Scale to Freedoms. And so it really helps you save time with your social media, learn some of those AI tools that can help you with that, as well as becoming more consistent and leading to sales. So that workshop I offer a couple times a year. I have multiple master classes as well. You can do free master classes, and a coaching program as well if you want to go deeper into some other areas of social media and visibility, like learning how to do your own photos and video with your phone so you don't have to hire a photographer and things like that. So for that one, you can find me at visiblebydesign.com or at visiblebydesign.co on Instagram.
Lovely. Thank you. And I thank the three of you so much for coming on board and sharing and carving out this hour and sharing with us. I learned quite a bit, and so and thank you so much. If you'd like to know about future roundtable events, I'm having them. The next one is in August, and it's called "Do You Need Social Media to Run Your Business?" Let's come on board and find out. It's happening on August 6th, and you can find more information at rightbrainlovesleft.com. Thank you, Tobey. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Keren. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And so all of you out in the audience, I hope you have a wonderful day as well. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for having us.